Welcome to Who's Immortal Today, the channel where mystery meets history and the vanished become legends. From the boundless skies over the Pacific, to the remote jungles of New Guinea, to the silent deserts of New Mexico. Some stories never end because the people in them were never found. These are the stories of 20 remarkable figures, trailblazers, artists, leaders, and rebels who disappeared without a trace, leaving behind questions, conspiracy theories, and legacies that time refuses to bury. Amelia Earhart, D.B. Cooper, Michael Rockefeller, Richey Edwards. The names go on, but the endings never came. Each episode, we journey into their final days, explore the theories, and ask, what really happened? Because in vanishing, they became something else. Symbols, myths, immortal. Hit subscribe and step into the unknown with us. This is Who's Immortal Today, where the missing never fade. News 1. Amelia Earhart, aviator who vanished over the Pacific in 1937. Amelia Earhart was a pioneering American aviator, born on July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas. Known for her fearless spirit and trailblazing achievements in aviation, she became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932, earning international fame and numerous awards. Earhart developed an early interest in aviation and took her first flying lesson in 1921. She quickly proved her skill and determination, buying her first plane, a bright yellow Kinner Airster she nicknamed the Canary. By 1923, she earned her pilot's license, becoming one of the few women in the world to do so at the time. Throughout the 1930s, Earhart continued to break records and advocate for women in aviation. She helped found the 99s, an organization for female pilots, and used her fame to promote aviation and women's equality. In 1937, Earhart embarked on an ambitious flight to circumnavigate the globe with navigator Fred Noonan. After covering most of the journey, they disappeared on July 2, 1937, during the flight from Lae, New Guinea, to Howland Island in the Pacific. Despite extensive search efforts, neither Earhart nor Noonan was ever found. Amelia Earhart's disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. Her legacy endures as a symbol of courage, ambition, and the pursuit of dreams against all odds. Through her achievements and mysterious end, she continues to inspire generations. News 2. Michael Rockefeller, the vanishing of a young explorer. Michael Rockefeller, born on May 18, 1938, was the son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller and a member of one of America's most prominent families. Educated at Harvard University, Michael was an anthropologist and art collector with a deep interest in indigenous cultures. His fascination led him to remote parts of the world, especially New Guinea, where he sought to collect tribal art for the Museum of Primitive Art in New York. In 1961, during an expedition to study and acquire Asmat art in southwestern New Guinea, then Dutch New Guinea, Michael's boat capsized off the coast. While his companion swam to safety, Michael attempted to swim 12 miles to shore with makeshift flotation gear. He was last seen paddling away and was never seen again. Despite an extensive search by the Dutch government and his family, including his father, no trace of Michael was found. His disappearance sparked intense speculation. While the official cause was presumed drowning, theories have ranged from being eaten by crocodiles to being killed by indigenous tribes in a revenge ritual. Over the decades, occasional rumors, alleged sightings, and unverified reports have kept the mystery alive. Some claimed he may have survived and lived among locals, but no conclusive evidence ever emerged. Michael Rockefeller's disappearance remains one of the most enduring and haunting mysteries of the 20th century, a tale of privilege, passion, and peril in one of the world's most remote regions. His legacy lives on through the art he helped preserve. News 3. Richey Edwards, the enigmatic disappearance of a rock icon. Richey Edwards, born on December 22, 1967 in Blackwood, Wales, was the lyricist and rhythm guitarist for the alternative rock band Manic Street Preachers. Known for his intense intellect, raw lyrics, and striking on-stage presence, Richey became a cult figure in British music during the early 1990s. He was especially admired for his deeply personal and often dark songwriting, touching on topics like depression, alienation, and political disillusionment. Despite not being a traditionally trained musician, Richey's creative vision shaped the band's identity. Albums like The Holy Bible, 1994, showcased his unflinching lyrical style and cemented his place as a voice of a troubled generation. However, Richey struggled with severe mental health issues, including self-harm and anorexia. On February 1st, 1995, just before the band was scheduled to embark on a U.S. tour, Richey disappeared. His car was later found abandoned near the Severn Bridge, a known suicide site sparking widespread speculation. No body was ever found, and numerous alleged sightings were reported over the years in locations as far as Goa, India. Despite ongoing investigations and public interest, his fate remains unknown. In 2008, he was officially declared presumed dead. Richey Edwards' disappearance has become one of rock music's most enduring mysteries. Though he vanished, his influence endures. His words, image, and spirit continue to resonate with fans who see him not just as a missing person, but as a poet lost in the shadows of fame. News 4. Connie Converse, the vanishing voice of a musical pioneer. Connie Converse, born Elizabeth Eaton Converse on August 3, 1924, in Laconia, New Hampshire, was a trailblazing singer-songwriter whose intimate confessional music predated the folk revival of the 1960s. Quietly crafting songs in the 1950s, her haunting melodies and introspective lyrics explored themes of love, longing, and loneliness with a frankness rare for her time. Living in New York City, Connie recorded a small collection of home demos and made a rare appearance on CBS's The Morning Show with Walter Cronkite in 1954. Despite her unique talent and heartfelt songwriting, her music never found a wide audience during her lifetime, and she faded into obscurity, eventually moving to Michigan. By the early 1970s, Connie was facing a series of personal and professional setbacks, including health issues and a sense of deepening despair. In August 1974, at age 50, she packed her belongings into her Volkswagen Beetle, left letters for family and friends, and disappeared. She was never seen or heard from again. Her disappearance remains unsolved, with no confirmed sightings or clues to her fate. In the 2000s, her recordings were rediscovered and released to critical acclaim, sparking a renewed interest in her life and work. Today, Connie Converse is celebrated as a forgotten pioneer of singer-songwriter music, a woman whose gentle voice and poetic songs were ahead of their time. Her disappearance only deepens the mystery and poignancy of her legacy, leaving behind a haunting question. What might she have become? News 5. Jim Sullivan, the folk rock musician who vanished without a trace. Jim Sullivan was an American singer-songwriter whose life and disappearance have become the stuff of legend. Born on August 13, 1940 in San Diego, California, Sullivan blended folk rock and a touch of mysticism in his music. He was a regular in the vibrant Los Angeles music scene during the 1960s and early 70s, often performing at clubs frequented by Hollywood elites and fellow musicians. In 1969, he released his debut album, UFO, a haunting collection of songs filled with themes of isolation, existential searching, and even extraterrestrial encounters. Though largely overlooked at the time, the album would later gain cult status for its eerie lyrics and haunting coincidences. On March 4, 1975, Sullivan left Los Angeles for Nashville, hoping to revive his career. Along the way, he checked into a motel in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, but never spent the night. His car was later found abandoned on a remote ranch, with his belongings, including his guitar and money, left inside. Despite extensive searches, no trace of Sullivan was ever found. His mysterious disappearance has sparked countless theories, from foul play to intentional vanishing, and even alien abduction, fueled by the prophetic nature of his album, UFO. Jim Sullivan's legacy has only grown with time. Though his life ended in mystery, his music continues to resonate with new generations, offering a glimpse into the soul of an artist lost somewhere between the road and the unknown. News 6. Barbara Newhall Follett, the child prodigy who vanished into silence. Barbara Newhall Follett was a literary prodigy whose early brilliance captivated the literary world, only to vanish mysteriously at the age of 25. Born on March 4, 1914, in Hanover, New Hampshire, Barbara showed an extraordinary gift for language and storytelling from a very young age. By age 4, she was using a typewriter. By 8, she had written her first novel. Her most acclaimed work, The House Without Windows, was published in 1927 when she was just 12. earning critical praise for its imagination and depth. Guided by her father, critic and editor Wilson Follett, Barbara grew up in a highly intellectual environment. However, her world unraveled when her father left the family in 1928, plunging them into emotional and financial hardship. Despite continuing to write and travel, Barbara struggled with instability and disillusionment, especially with the limitations placed on women in society. In 1934, she married writer Nickerson Rogers, but the relationship grew strained. On December 7, 1939, after a heated argument, Barbara walked out of their apartment in Brookline, Massachusetts, with just a small amount of money, and was never seen again. Strangely, her disappearance went unreported for 2 weeks, and investigations were minimal. Rogers didn't file a missing person report until 1966, claiming he had respected her wishes to be left alone. No evidence of her fate was ever discovered. Barbara's disappearance remains one of literature's great unsolved mysteries. Once hailed as a genius destined for greatness, she became a ghost in the very world she once enchanted with her words. Today, Barbara Newhall Follett is remembered not only for her remarkable early talent, but also as a symbol of a gifted voice lost too soon, both to time and circumstance. News 7. Joe Pichler, the promising young actor who mysteriously vanished. Joe Pichler was a rising child actor best known for his roles in family films during the late 1990s and early 2000s. Born on February 14, 1987 in Bremerton, Washington, Pichler began acting at a young age and quickly gained attention for his charm and talent. He appeared in several TV commercials before landing film roles, most notably in Varsity Blues, 1999, and the Beethoven film series, where he played Brennan Newton in Beethoven's Third and Beethoven's Fourth. Despite his early success, Pichler returned to his hometown in Washington after a few years in Hollywood, choosing to finish high school and plan his adult career. He intended to return to acting eventually, but also considered college and other paths. Friends and family described him as intelligent, kind, and full of potential. On January 5, 2006, at the age of 18, Joe Pichler was last seen leaving a friend's house in Bremerton. His car was later found abandoned near a local waterway with his personal belongings and a note inside. While the note expressed emotional distress and wishes for his family, it did not explicitly mention suicide. Despite extensive searches and media attention, no trace of Pichler was ever found, and his case remains unsolved. The mysterious nature of his disappearance has led to much speculation. Was it a tragic case of a young man overwhelmed by pressure or something more sinister? Joe Pichler's vanishing left a lasting mark on those who knew him and those who followed his career. A bright star who disappeared just as his adult life was beginning, his story remains a haunting reminder of how even promising lives can be shrouded in mystery and loss. News 8. Frederick Valentich, the pilot who vanished after reporting a UFO. Frederick Valentich was a 20-year-old Australian pilot whose mysterious disappearance in 1978 remains one of the most puzzling aviation incidents in history. Born on June 9, 1958 in Melbourne, Victoria, Valentich was a passionate aviator with aspirations of joining the Royal Australian Air Force, though he had been rejected due to insufficient academic performance. Undeterred, he pursued flying through private training and held a Class 4 instrument rating. On the evening of October 21, 1978, Valentich took off in a rented Cessna 182L aircraft from Moorabbin Airport, headed for King Island in the Bass Strait. He told flight officials he was picking up passengers, though no one on the island was expecting him. During the flight, Valentich contacted Melbourne Air Traffic Control, reporting that a strange, unidentified aircraft was hovering above him. Over the next 6 minutes, he described the object as shiny, metallic, and featuring green lights. He reported that it was orbiting his plane and that his engine was running rough. His final transmission was chilling. "It's not an aircraft." Radio contact was then lost. Despite a massive air and sea search, no trace of Valentich or his plane was ever found. The case sparked intense speculation and remains officially classified as missing. Some believe he became disoriented and crashed into the sea, while others, fueled by his UFO report, suggest a more extraordinary explanation involving alien abduction. The Frederick Valentich disappearance is one of Australia's most famous aviation mysteries. It continues to captivate UFO researchers and skeptics alike, serving as a chilling case where a young pilot's final words may have pointed to something truly unexplainable, and he was never heard from again. News 9. D.B. Cooper, the Skyjacker who vanished into legend. D.B. Cooper is the alias of an unidentified man who pulled off one of the most daring and mysterious crimes in U.S. history, and then vanished without a trace. On November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a man using the name Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon, bound for Seattle. He was described as a calm, middle-aged man in a dark suit and tie, carrying a briefcase. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant claiming he had a bomb. He opened his briefcase to show what appeared to be wires and explosives and demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. The FBI complied, and all passengers were released upon landing. Cooper then instructed the crew to fly to Mexico City at low altitude and slow speed. Sometime over the dense wilderness of southwestern Washington, Cooper opened the rear stairway of the Boeing 727 and parachuted into the night with the ransom money and disappeared. Despite one of the most extensive investigations in FBI history, Cooper's identity and fate remain unknown. In 1980, a young boy found a decaying bundle of $20 bills from the ransom buried along the Columbia River, but no other significant clues emerged. The FBI officially closed the case in 2016. Theories about Cooper's true identity range from military veterans to disgruntled airline workers, and some believe he died during the jump. Others are convinced he survived and escaped justice. D.B. Cooper has since become a folk legend, a symbol of outlaw cleverness and one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. His audacious crime, flawless execution, and complete disappearance continue to fascinate investigators, storytellers, and conspiracy theorists to this day. News 10. Sean Flynn, the daring war photojournalist who disappeared in Cambodia. Sean Flynn, born on May 31, 1941, in Los Angeles, California, was the only son of Hollywood legend Errol Flynn and French actress Lily Demita. While he initially pursued a career in acting, appearing in a handful of adventure films during the 1960s, Sean ultimately found his true calling not in front of the camera, but behind it, as a fearless war photojournalist. Drawn to danger and driven by a deep curiosity about global conflict, Flynn began covering wars in the mid-1960s, first reporting from Vietnam and later from other parts of Southeast Asia. He worked for major outlets like Time and Paris Match, quickly earning a reputation for his bravery and willingness to embed himself in the thick of battle. His striking photographs captured the harsh realities of war and human suffering. On April 6, 1970, while traveling by motorcycle with fellow photojournalist Dana Stone in eastern Cambodia, Flynn was reportedly stopped by Khmer Rouge guerrillas. The two were last seen being led away at gunpoint. Despite extensive searches by journalists, governments, and even private investigators, neither man was ever found. Numerous theories have circulated, from execution by the Khmer Rouge to imprisonment in remote jungle camps, but no conclusive evidence has ever surfaced. In 1984, Flynn was declared legally dead in absentia. Sean Flynn's disappearance remains one of the most haunting mysteries of the Vietnam War era. He is remembered not only for his adventurous spirit and famous lineage, but for his courageous pursuit of truth through the lens of a camera. In Vanishing, Flynn became a symbol of the countless journalists who risk, and sometimes lose, their lives in the search for stories the world needs to see. News 11. Bison Dele, the NBA star who vanished at sea. Bison Dele, born Brian Carson Williams on April 6, 1969, in Fresno, California, was a talented and unconventional professional basketball player whose life ended in mystery. Standing 6 feet 11 inches tall, Dele played center and had stints with several NBA teams, including the Orlando Magic, Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Clippers, Chicago Bulls, and Detroit Pistons. He won an NBA championship with the Bulls in 1997, alongside Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. At the peak of his career, Dale stunned the sports world by retiring in 1999 at age 30, walking away from a $36 million contract. Known for his intelligence, free spirit, and interest in world cultures, he chose a life of travel and adventure over fame and fortune. In July 2002, Dele disappeared while sailing in the South Pacific aboard his catamaran, the Hakuna Matata. On board with him were his girlfriend Serena Carlin, skipper Bertrand Saldo, and his older brother Miles DeBoard, born Kevin Williams. After a period of radio silence, authorities launched an investigation when only DeBoard returned, alone. Suspicion quickly fell on DeBoard, who was found using Dele's identity to buy gold. He gave conflicting accounts of the events at sea, eventually claiming that an argument had turned deadly. Before he could be fully questioned, DeBoard slipped into a coma after an apparent overdose and died, taking the truth with him. No bodies were ever recovered, and Dele, Carlin, and Saldo remain missing. Bison Dele's disappearance is one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in sports history. A man who lived life on his own terms, his final chapter remains shrouded in uncertainty, a story of talent, tragedy, and the vast, unknowable ocean. News 12. Ian Mackintosh, the television visionary who vanished without a trace. Ian Mackintosh was a British television writer and producer, best known for creating the groundbreaking 1970s espionage series The Sandbaggers. Born in 1940 in Inverness, Scotland, Mackintosh served in the Royal Navy and reached the rank of lieutenant commander, an experience that deeply influenced his writing. His insider knowledge of military operations gave his television work an air of authenticity rarely seen at the time. Mackintosh transitioned to writing in the early 1970s, quickly gaining recognition for his sharp storytelling and complex characters. The Sandbaggers, which aired from 1978 to 1980, was his most acclaimed work, a gritty, realistic take on Cold War intelligence that developed a cult following for its portrayal of bureaucratic infighting and moral ambiguity within the British Secret Service. On July 7, 1979, Ian Mackintosh, his girlfriend Susan Insull, and their pilot took off in a light aircraft over Alaska's Gulf Coast. During the flight, the plane reportedly sent a mayday call before disappearing from radar. Despite a large-scale search by the U.S. Coast Guard, no wreckage or bodies were ever found. The mysterious disappearance sparked rumors and conspiracy theories, especially given Mackintosh's military background and the realistic detail in The Sandbaggers. Some speculated that he may have had ties to intelligence services or knew too much. Others believe it was simply a tragic accident over a vast and unforgiving wilderness. Ian Mackintosh's legacy lives on through his television work, especially in the spy drama genre. His sudden disappearance only deepened the intrigue surrounding him, blurring the line between the fiction he crafted and the mystery of his real life. Whether he died in a crash or vanished under more clandestine circumstances, Mackintosh remains a fascinating figure lost in both history and myth. News 13. Harold Holt, the Prime Minister who vanished without a trace. Harold Holt was the 17th Prime Minister of Australia, whose sudden and mysterious disappearance in 1967 remains one of the most baffling events in modern political history. Born on August 5, 1908 in Sydney, Holt pursued law before entering politics. He became a member of Parliament in 1935 and steadily rose through the ranks of the Liberal Party, eventually becoming Prime Minister in January 1966 following the retirement of Sir Robert Menzies. As Prime Minister, Holt is best known for strengthening Australia's alliance with the United States during the Vietnam War, famously declaring that Australia would go all the way with LBJ. He also played a key role in the landmark 1967 referendum that granted Indigenous Australians full inclusion in the census and allowed the federal government to make laws on their behalf. On December 17, 1967, Holt went for a swim at Cheviot Beach near Port C, Victoria, a spot known for its strong currents and dangerous surf. Despite warnings from others, he entered the water and was quickly swept out to sea. A massive search involving the Navy, Air Force, police, and local volunteers followed, but no trace of his body was ever found. His disappearance shocked the nation and the world, spawning conspiracy theories that ranged from accidental drowning to abduction by a Chinese submarine. However, the official explanation remains that Holt drowned in rough surf due to dangerous conditions and possible exhaustion. Harold Holt's legacy is forever entwined with the mystery of his vanishing. As the only sitting Australian Prime Minister to disappear without a trace, his story continues to capture public imagination, a curious blend of national tragedy, unresolved questions, and enduring speculation that keeps his name alive in history and folklore. News 14. Raymond Chandler, the master of noir who vanished briefly into mystery. Raymond Chandler, born on July 23, 1888, in Chicago, Illinois, was a seminal figure in American literature, best known for his hard-boiled detective novels featuring the iconic private investigator Philip Marlowe. Raised in both the U.S. and England, Chandler had a varied early career that included journalism, civil service, and oil company executive work before he turned to fiction in his mid-40s during the Great Depression. His first novel, The Big Sleep, 1939, introduced Marlowe and a distinctive writing style that combined gritty realism with literary sophistication. Chandler's influence on the crime genre is profound, helping to elevate detective fiction into a respected literary form. His work inspired generations of writers and filmmakers, and helped define the noir aesthetic in literature and cinema. Despite his professional success, Chandler struggled with alcoholism and personal turmoil, particularly following the death of his wife, Sissy, in 1954. In 1955, he suffered a mysterious episode in which he vanished for a short period. Chandler was later found disoriented and confused in a hotel, with few memories of what had occurred. Some believe it was the result of a mental health crisis or a suicide attempt, though details remain vague. This strange interlude added an eerie layer to Chandler's persona, a man who, like his characters, seemed to drift through a fog of darkness and existential unease. He continued to write until his death in 1959, leaving behind a body of work that includes classics like Farewell, My Lovely, The Long Goodbye, and The Lady in the Lake. Though his brief disappearance remains a footnote in his biography, it mirrors the troubled, enigmatic world he created in fiction, where the truth is elusive and shadows often conceal more than they reveal. News 15. Licorice McKechnie, the elusive voice of psychedelic folk. Licorice McKechnie, born Christina McKechnie in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1945, was a prominent figure in the psychedelic folk music scene of the 1960s and 1970s. Best known for her ethereal vocals and distinctive presence as a member of the influential band, the Incredible String Band, McKechnie contributed to a musical movement that blended traditional folk with mystical, Eastern, and experimental influences. She joined the band in the late 1960s and became a key part of their unique sound during their most acclaimed period. Albums like The Hangman's Beautiful Daughter, 1968, and Wee Tam and the Big Huge, 1968, showcased her vocals and harmonies, adding a delicate, otherworldly quality to the group's already unconventional music. Beyond her singing, she occasionally played instruments and participated in live performances that were as theatrical as they were musical. After leaving the Incredible String Band in the early 1970s, McKechnie largely withdrew from public life. She briefly lived in California and continued to explore creative and alternative lifestyles. Though little is known about her activities during this period, the mystery deepened when she was reportedly last seen in Arizona around 1986. Since then, there have been no confirmed sightings or contact. Despite various rumors and speculative reports, her fate remains unknown, and she has never been officially declared missing or deceased. Licorice McKechnie's disappearance adds a haunting layer to her already enigmatic legacy. Once a symbol of the 1960s counterculture, free-spirited, artistic, and mystical, she now lingers in the public imagination as a figure lost in time. Her music lives on, but the woman behind the voice remains one of the most quietly perplexing mysteries in the world of psychedelic folk. News 16. Hart Crane, the brilliant poet who vanished into the sea. Harold Hart Crane, born on July 21, 1899 in Garrettsville, Ohio, was one of America's most innovative and passionate modernist poets. Known for his rich lyrical style and ambitious vision, Crane sought to create poetry that captured the complexity and spirit of modern America. His work combined classical influences with modernist experimentation, often exploring themes of transcendence, despair, and the search for meaning in a fractured world. Crane's early life was marked by turbulence. His parents divorced when he was young, and he struggled with his sexuality and mental health throughout his life. Moving to New York City in his teens, Crane immersed himself in the literary world and began publishing poetry in respected journals. His first collection, White Buildings, 1926, received critical praise and positioned him as a rising literary talent. His most ambitious work, The Bridge, 1930, was a sweeping epic poem that reimagined the Brooklyn Bridge as a symbol of American hope and unity. Though it received mixed reviews upon release, it is now considered a landmark of American poetry. Crane's personal life, however, was increasingly troubled by depression, alcoholism, and feelings of alienation. In 1932, While returning from Mexico aboard the steamship Orizaba, Crane reportedly leapt into the Gulf of Mexico after an altercation and was never seen again. He was 32 years old. Despite a search, his body was never recovered. Hart Crane's mysterious disappearance added a mythic dimension to his legacy. Seen by some as a tragic romantic figure, he is remembered for his soaring poetic ambition and his ability to wrest beauty from chaos. His voice, though silenced early, continues to echo through American literature as one of its most daring and emotionally powerful expressions. News 17. Theodosia Burr Alston, the brilliant heiress who vanished at sea. Theodosia Burr Alston, born on June 21, 1783, was the daughter of Aaron Burr, the third Vice President of the United States, and his beloved wife, Theodosia Bartow Prevost. Raised in a world of politics and privilege, Theodosia was known for her intelligence, refinement, and education, unusual for women of her time. Her father, a passionate advocate for women's education, personally oversaw her rigorous studies in literature, languages, and philosophy, treating her more as a protege than merely a daughter. In 1801, she married Joseph Alston, a wealthy South Carolina planter who later became governor of the state. Despite a promising political union, Theodosia's life was marked by personal tragedy. The death of her only child in 1812 devastated her, and her health began to decline under the strain of grief. In December 1812, after her father fled to Europe in disgrace, following his infamous duel with Alexander Hamilton and treason trial, Theodosia set sail aboard the schooner Patriot from South Carolina to New York, hoping to reunite with him. The ship never arrived. It is believed to have disappeared somewhere off the coast of North Carolina in early January 1813. The exact fate of Theodosia and the Patriot remains unknown. Theories abound, from pirate attacks and shipwrecks to illness and foul weather. Over the years, scattered rumors, forged letters, and supposed relics have surfaced, but none have provided definitive answers. Theodosia Burr Alston's disappearance has become one of early America's most enduring maritime mysteries. Remembered as a woman of rare intellect and grace, her vanishing only adds to the mystique that surrounds the Burr legacy. She remains a poignant figure, a bright light of the early republic, lost forever to the sea. News 18. Shelly Miscavige, the missing First Lady of Scientology. Shelly Miscavige, born Michelle Diane Barnett in 1961, is the wife of David Miscavige, the leader of the Church of Scientology. Often referred to as the First Lady of Scientology, Shelly was a lifelong member of the church, joining its elite Sea organization, Sea Org, in her teens. She was known as a fiercely loyal and dedicated figure within the organization, working closely with her husband in high-level administrative and organizational roles. For many years, Shelly was a prominent and active presence at church events and often appeared publicly alongside David Miscavige. However, in 2007, she suddenly stopped appearing in public, prompting speculation and concern from former Scientologists, critics, and the general public. High-profile ex-Scientologists, including actress Leah Remini, began questioning her whereabouts, especially after her unexplained absence from major Scientology functions. In 2013, Remini filed a missing person report with the Los Angeles Police Department, which was reportedly closed after officers claimed they had made contact with Shelly. However, no photographic evidence or public statement from Shelly has ever surfaced. The Church of Scientology has consistently refused to comment on her location, dismissing inquiries as harassment. Critics allege that Shelly has been confined at a secretive church compound, possibly near Lake Arrowhead, California, an accusation the church denies. To this day, Shelly Miscavige's whereabouts remain unknown to the public, and she has not been seen in over 15 years. Her disappearance has fueled widespread speculation and has become emblematic of the intense secrecy surrounding the inner workings of Scientology. Whether living in isolation or held against her will, Shelly's story remains one of the most troubling and unresolved mysteries connected to the controversial organization she once helped lead. News 19. Oscar Zeta Acosta, the radical voice who vanished without a trace. Oscar Zeta Acosta was a writer, attorney, and Chicano civil rights activist whose life was as bold and unpredictable as the characters he created. Born on April 8, 1935 in El Paso, Texas, Acosta grew up in California and became deeply involved in the Chicano movement during the 1960s and 1970s. As a lawyer, he famously defended East Los Angeles activists and members of the Brown Berets, advocating fiercely for social justice, police accountability, and the empowerment of Mexican-American communities. In the literary world, Acosta gained fame for his two semi-autobiographical novels, The Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo, 1972, and The Revolt of the Cockroach People, 1973. These works blended personal narrative with political commentary and satire, capturing the frustrations, identity struggles, and rebellious spirit of Chicano life in America. Acosta is perhaps most widely recognized as the inspiration for the character Dr. Gonzo in Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. The two shared a volatile friendship and a love of drugs, politics, and wild adventures. Thompson's portrayal helped immortalize Acosta, but also overshadowed his serious contributions to literature and activism. In 1974, Acosta traveled to Mazatlan, Mexico, and mysteriously disappeared. He was 39 years old. Rumors suggest he may have died in a drug-related incident, been murdered, or intentionally disappeared. Despite investigations and speculation, no conclusive evidence has ever emerged. Oscar Zeta Acosta's disappearance remains one of the enduring mysteries of American counterculture. Charismatic, confrontational, and unafraid to challenge the status quo, he left behind a legacy of radical thought and cultural pride. Though his fate is unknown, his voice continues to resonate through the causes he championed and the pages he penned. News 20. Glenn Miller, the swing legend who vanished in wartime. Glenn Miller was one of the most iconic and influential band leaders of the swing era, known for his smooth, sophisticated arrangements and timeless hits. Born on March 1, 1904 in Clarinda, Iowa, Miller rose from modest beginnings to become a global music sensation in the 1930s and early 1940s. With classics like In the Mood, Moonlight Serenade, and Chattanooga Choo Choo, the Glenn Miller Orchestra defined the sound of a generation. By 1942, at the height of his success, Miller made the unusual decision to put his career on hold and enlist in the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. Commissioned as a captain, he was tasked with leading the Army Air Force Band, which performed for troops throughout Europe, boosting morale with patriotic and swing music. On December 15, 1944, while en route from England to Paris to prepare for a Christmas concert for Allied soldiers, Miller boarded a small UC-64 Norseman aircraft. The plane vanished over the English Channel and was never seen again. Despite extensive searches, no wreckage or remains were ever recovered. His disappearance sparked decades of speculation and theories, ranging from accidental crash in poor weather to friendly fire or even espionage. The most accepted theory is that his plane went down due to icy weather conditions. Glenn Miller's sudden loss was a profound blow during wartime, but his music endured and his legacy only grew stronger. As a pioneer of big band jazz and a symbol of patriotic sacrifice, Miller remains a towering figure in American musical history. Though his final flight ended in mystery, the sound he created continues to echo through concert halls, radios, and hearts around the world. These are just 20 of the most haunting disappearances in celebrity history. Names once in the spotlight, now lost in mystery. From Amelia Earhart to Glenn Miller, their stories remind us that even fame can't shield us from the unknown. Which story do you find the most mysterious? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your theories. And if you enjoy diving deep into unsolved mysteries and forgotten legends, make sure to like this video, share it with fellow mystery lovers, and subscribe to Who Immortal Today. Don't forget to tap the bell icon so you're the first to know when a new mystery drops. Thanks for watching, and remember, not all who vanish are ever truly forgotten.